Hi everyone, and I very quickly just want to spend a few moments here just going through some tips for remote teaching. So for the next few moments, all I'm going to give you are 8 tips for remote teaching to help you through when you've got to be learning at home. So my first tip for you would be to have a routine. When you're at school, at college or university, you've got a routine that you're following, and it's really important you try and maintain that routine when you're home learning or remote learning. What you need to do is follow it as much as you can. Share it with people that you're living with so they understand what routine you're following and that you're going to be having remote lessons or you're going to be studying at specific times during the day. What you should also try and do is have a weekly routine. Try and identify what your priorities are for that week so you know when you've got to get work in on time. So that's my first tip for you. Make sure you've got a routine. My second tip for you is to remove distractions. The most obvious one, mobile phone. It is for me. Every 2 minutes, if I'm working at home, I'm almost touching out for my mobile phone. And what I know to do now is put it in a different room and out the way so it doesn't distract me. And I only go to it once an hour if I really need to. Otherwise I keep it out the way. So you really need to be doing something like that. It can be useful to give it to someone else. If you're studying at home, give it to a friend, give it to a parent, or if you've got a games console and you need to get some work done, unplug it, give that to someone else until you've completed that work. But it's absolutely key when you're learning at home that you remove any distractions that are going to get in the way between you and the work you need to get completed. My next tip for you is to find somewhere to study. That's going to be easier for some than it is for others. I've remote studied in the past. I learnt my degree by remote studying, and I really had to find some innovative ways for me to study away from other people and out where I wouldn't be distracted. So it's not going to be easy for you sometimes. I get you're not going to have your own room. You might be sharing with siblings, you might be sharing with other people, and that's going to be tricky, but try and find a space where you can study. That can be a table, it can even be the corner of a work surface, but make sure other people also know that is the place where you're studying so they don't start getting in your way. It's really important you have that space. It links back to the routine as well. You have a space and you know that's your study space. My next tip for you is about equipment. When you study at school, at college or university, there's an expectation you've got certain equipment with you. That might simply be just a pen, a paper and a planner. Same needs to happen when you're remote studying as well. You need to have a pen, paper and some form of device for you to access your work. Now, I have said previously, put your phone away. It may be your only device is to use your phone. That means you've really got to be disciplined. You've got to stay focused on that work. But ideally, we're going to be able to put our phone away and use some other device to access any electronic learning that we need to be doing. If you can do, use your normal school books, use your normal college books and carry on completing the work in there. But if not, let's just work on paper and work with pens and take pride in that work as you're completing it. So my next tip for you is take pride in yourself. It's really easy when you start working from home, when you get into a home routine, to think, well, I don't need to really care about what I'm wearing today. I can almost get away with wearing my pyjamas. Particularly if you're remote learning and you don't turn your camera on throughout the day, then you can get away with that, but it's bad for your health. What you need to do, get up in the morning, follow that routine and make sure that you get dressed as though you're going to go out and meet other people during the day. Because it's about looking after yourself and taking pride in yourself, and you'll feel a lot more positive if you do that rather than just staying in your pyjamas all day. Another thing about taking pride in yourself is also eating healthy. So have healthy snacks, have meals at regular times, and when you have your meals, try and have them with other people in your home or people that you're living with. Eating's a social occasion. It's a chance to chat about things other than the studying that you're doing. So that's the next tip for you, taking pride in yourself. My next tip for you It's about making sure that you communicate with others whilst you're remote learning. When you're at home, you can feel really isolated and solitary. And it's important that you communicate with your teachers and your tutors whilst you're going through this. They're still there to help you. They're there to answer your questions. Quite often they'll be conducting video lessons. Try and get involved in those video lessons, because that's one way for you to interact with your teacher and also interact with other students that you're learning with. You can all come together and get as close as you can to that classroom feel. From experience, that's worked really well when I've been having phone groups and we get as many people together, get those cameras on and start talking to each other. We don't just talk about the lesson, we talk about other things. We've talked about Spotify lists, we've talked about the weather, we've talked about what we've had for breakfast. It gives you a chance to realise that learning is a social occasion, so I'd really stress that you do that. Also, if you're struggling, if you're starting to feel a bit anxious, if you're feeling you're not keeping up with the work, this is the way that you need to be starting to let your teachers, your tutors, your school, your college know. Put your hand up and say, I'm not doing well here, I need a little bit of support. That's okay. A lot of people struggle with remote learning. It's not an easy thing to do, particularly if it's being forced upon you and it's unexpected. Okay, so my next tip kind of follows on from this idea of coping with remote learning, and it's the idea of looking after your mental health. Quite often you'll forget that as you're remote learning, it's quite tiring and it's going to drain you. You start going to get anxious about, are you keeping up with everyone else? Are you going to be okay when you go back to your normal place, be that school or a college? What's it going to be like when you return? Therefore, you need to take time out every so often to ground yourself. It's something I've learned to do over time. I wasn't good at this before. I now use an app called Headspace, but there's Headspace and there's Calm and there's other ways of doing that. Spend 10 minutes a day just grounding yourself and meditating. Both those apps have got free activities that you can use, and I can't recommend those enough to you. So look after your mental health, and if you're really struggling, let school, let college, let other people know that you're not coping, because there's a whole network there ready to kick in and support you. That's okay. Okay, my final tip for you is to reward yourself. As I've said, this is going to be difficult. Remote learning is never an easy activity. So at the end of every day, make sure you've got a reward to look forward to. When you establish that routine, that first tip I talked about, once you've completed that routine for the day, make sure you say to yourself, right, I've done this, I'm going to watch a film, I'm going to spend some time on the games console, I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to do something I enjoy doing, because we've got to have those rewards at the end of the day. Similarly, you're going to say to yourself, I've now got to complete this piece of work. If I complete this work, I'm going to reward myself with a snack or something else. Generally it works better if every hour you spend 10 minutes of that hour, time out, give yourself a reward and then back in there. So rewarding yourself throughout this experience is important. So that's it. 8 tips for remote learning. Remote learning is not an easy thing. So don't worry if you can't do it. Don't worry if you're struggling. Just do the best you can. Try and follow the 8 tips that I've given you, and I'm sure you'll do fine. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.